Giacalone, and we are here to talk about some very important news today. That being the arrest of Andrew Dykes for the murder of Tatiana and Tanya. Um, Joe, I don't even know where to start with what's going on today.
Well, the only thing that we could start with, I think uh, we're only looking at arrest for one of the cases. I think we're only looking at Tanya, and it was actually in the paperwork that we had discussed last night, the arrest warrant and stuff like that. It just said the singular murder. It didn't say murders, and it's only Nassau. So if Suffolk was in on this, they would have had to have one from Suffolk as well. So I think right now we're only looking at one murder case, and that is for Tanya Jackson, formerly known as Peaches.
But the issue here is if we're talking about this one, we're obviously talking about two. We're obviously talking about, uh, the toddler as well.
Well, how do you separate them two, right? Tatiana didn't get all the way out to Gilgo Beach by herself.
Of course.
So you're right. And but you know what though? I mean, we can read into this a bit. I mean, when we first talked about the presser, I think it was in April, we made the statements that there wasn't a Suffolk County representative there.
Yeah.
Nothing from the district attorney's office out there from Suffolk County. So I don't know if there is something going on behind the scenes that everybody is not aware of. But to me, I think this was just kind of a slam dunk, so to speak, in regards to this. She's what, 18 months. She just didn't get out there by herself. And if you're going to charge the father with homicide, then I think the likely thing would have been charging him, for her case as well too. But I listen. I think the probable cause affidavit is probably going to have some of that stuff outlined for us when he gets back here in Nassau.
Well, look, first of all, let's just break down real quick why we think they charged him with her murder.
The only thing I can think of is because they have DNA that was found contained inside of that container somehow, either on her or inside the container. And if you recall, anybody who's been watching us now talk about this case for a while, we've been saying for the longest time that they know who Peaches and Baby Doe were. All
Yes.
right. I don't think that was a big surprise for anybody who follows us. And well, I'm not saying that to toot our horn, but I'm saying it is, I think they released it so late because they were trying to get a DNA sample from a suspect, right? So an abandonment sample. If just look recently between Rex Heuermann and the recent case of Richard Belledew, they even said it took a long time to get that DNA abandonment sample to test it to what they had. And then, of course, we know it's not done like television where they can get a DNA sample, submit it, and get an action within 45 minutes with 3 commercials. So these things take time.
Right. Well, we also know that they were speaking to Mr. Dykes quite often for at least a year, were they not? They were having conversations with him. They were saying that he was being cooperative.
Right, which also means to me, because I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere in a report that I think he said he hadn't seen her in like the 6 months prior to this incident happening. But I think we will find out is that he probably made some statements to the police that just didn't add up. That's my
Right.
guess.
Right. So there's somehow his DNA is on her or on the materials, reminding everybody that she was found in a Rubbermaid container. She was found wrapped in a kind of, not a sheet, but maybe a duvet cover,
Bedspread kind of thing. Yeah.
bedspread. That bedspread could have been gotten. The web sleuths originally went in and found out that bed sheet had been found at Abraham and Strauss, which you could have bought Rockville Center, also in Brooklyn, right?
Right. Yeah. I think it was Wamsuda. That was
Yeah.
the brand. Even they had really done a lot of good work and try to uncover that. So I listen, as always, the law enforcement agency and the district attorney's office knows a hell of a lot more than us in regards to this, and I think we're just trying to put pieces of this together and things that we've already spoken about and things that we know and try to figure out how they came to this final conclusion on this. But I'd hate to see this, that there's some sort of rift going on between Nassau and Suffolk.
Hate to see it. There obviously is a rift going on between them.
Yeah, like I said, well, hey, listen, I am going to toot my horn on this. I've been saying that this case is going to be within a few months. Something big was going to happen on this so far, and it's been true, and that's just purely out of a guess. But I just thought that from the very beginning, I said this case held the most potential for DNA because of the fact of that container. So I'm going to stick by that, and I think that's what we're really going to be talking about come Monday or Tuesday, whenever he finally makes it back to Nassau County.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now that this seriously pisses me off because there is no way that Andrew Sykes, the father, not no way, but it's virtually impossible that this father could have done this. I mean, let's break it down, right? First of all, dismemberment is very rare, right? Basically, 3% of all homicides are dismemberment, just 3%, right? So, number one, does the husband have any experience with dismemberment? Remember, it's not an easy thing to dismember a person. You have to know what you're doing, right? Even Mark Safrick just told us that last week when we did an interview with him. You have to know what you're doing, right? So dismemberment is highly unlikely. So if we just game it out, he kills his wife in 1997, right? Which is not uncommon, but dismembering intimate partners, that's even more rare than actually dismembering. You're talking about another subset. You're talking about another 3% on top of that, right? So he dismembers the body. Do we know that he lived with his other wife, as some people have said?
I don't know for sure, right? So that's the conversation that's going on now. Like, where was he at the time? Who was he with? And does the family, did his other wife or significant other even know about his child? There's a lot of questions that I think we're gonna have to wait on to see what those answers come out with.
Okay, let's say he dismembers her body, right? It's assumed, or at least preliminary reports, Raul and others are saying, maybe he lived with his wife, lived with another family, and that she was, this kind of illicit affair that he had in when they were both in the army together in Texas, right? He's born in what, 59? She's born in 1970, so he's a little older, and it was on the Reddit boards that this kind of illicit affair is not is frowned upon in the army. So it wasn't a kind of typical relationship. It was some kind of illicit affair, right? So let's say that maybe he lives with his wife in Brooklyn, right? Chances are. So if he kills Tanya, he's probably has to dismember her at her place, right?
More than likely, yeah. He's not going to be doing it in his house with his chance of his wife coming back.
So he kills Tanya. He dismembers her tragically at her place. He then drives from her apartment in Brooklyn and deposits her torso in Hempstead Park, right? Putting her remains on this trail where she can very easily be found. He didn't put her remains in the lake, which was right there, but he would have put her remains in her torso in a cooler and left it kind of for somebody to find, right? That's a little bit strange. That's a little bit weird. How does
Panicky,
he know?
maybe.
What?
Panicky, maybe, right? You pull over the side of the road over there, somebody can drive by and see you.
I mean, I'm not sure that that's a side of the road. You have to kind of go in there, Yeah. First of all, he's coming from Brooklyn to Hempstead Park. How does he know to go to Hempstead Park? I mean,
well, it's right off the Southern State, right? So the Belt Parkway right into the Southern State. I mean, it's as soon as you get off, it's the park is right there. I mean,
okay.
Hempstead Lake State Park is poof. I mean, you get off the Parkway, bang, there it is. So,
Right.
And you could see it from when you're driving on the Southern State. So I'm sure they've traveled that route, or he's traveled that route quite often. And it's before the Wantaw Parkway or the Meadowbrook Parkway, which would lead you to Jones Beach.
Right. So it's not that crazy that he would kind of see this area and deposit her remains, again, weirdly enough, in a cooler at this park, and not put her remains in the lake, because isn't the point of him trying to get rid of her body so that she's not found?
Yeah, the problem with putting somebody in the water is that, unless you are weighing it down or you do it properly, the body's going to come back up to the surface pretty quickly. Especially, this happened, I believe, in June. She was found, right?
Yeah.
So the water's warmer and it usually tends to rise faster. So I just think that he pulled over to the side of the road, got the bin out of the thing, threw it in there, got back in his car as fast as he can, and ran.
Okay.
Uh,
So he kills her at her apartment, drives however much from his apartment, and puts her remains in a cooler and puts that cooler in Hempstead Park. He then takes her extremities, her head, theoretically, and her other extremities, and then drives 22 miles further out and puts her remains in Jones Beach. Correct?
right, her head was found at Jones Beach, which was the furthest west of all the victims' pieces that they found.
I thought her head was not found. Her head is not found. Her head still has yet to be found. That was what I thought, but maybe I have that wrong. Could be.
Well,
Okay.
we'll take a quick peek as
Yeah.
we're doing this.
So he drives 22 miles further out and places her other extremities in Jones Beach. By the way, we also know that Rex Heuermann worked at Jones Beach from high school onward, drove around Jones Beach. So he happens to pick a place that Rex knows pretty well, Jones Beach, right?
North side of Oceanside, Ocean Parkway there too, by the way.
Right. So he drives out. How does he pick Ocean Parkway? Not many people know about Ocean Parkway unless you happen to surf there or go fishing there. And we know from our experience, we know why Rex knows Ocean Parkway, because he hunted there, because he worked there. So Rex knows the area, but how this guy, who's not a lifelong Long Islander, finds Ocean Parkway, I don't know. But he drives and he deposits her remains. Weirdly, 2 miles from where Karen Vergata's dismembered remains have already been deposited a year earlier in 1996, right? So this is 1997. He drives out and he happens to discard her remains 2 miles from where Karen Vergata, a different victim, theoretically, of a different killer, her remains have already been deposited a year before, 1996, because her legs were found in Fire Island in 1996. We assume the rest of her remains were deposited in 1996 on Ocean Parkway.
Right.
Allegedly by Rex Heuermann, or at least a different killer who, by the way, also dismembered his victims. So again, you're not just talking about like 0.03%, you're talking about like 0.3% of two different killers dismembering their victims. So, wow, the chances of that are very small.
Yes, and kind of throws a lot of things off, right? I mean, in regards to what we've all thought of and learned about the victims of Gilgo. Now, I mean, I'll even throw another curveball out there: the Asian male doe. We still have the two cases that are now still open of Asian male doe and Karen Vergata.
Okay, but wait, we're not done, because that
I know.
that is a crazy coincidence, Joe. That is a crazy coincidence that this guy happened to have dismembered his wife and dropped her remains less than 2 miles from where another serial killer has dropped a different victim that he killed. Theoretically, we're not quite sure, right? Because Rex hasn't been charged with Karen Vergata, but a different serial killer less than a year before. Wow. Crazy coincidence. Joe, what do you say about coincidences?
I'd say there's no such thing as coincidences, but I guess I might have to eat some crow on this one so far.
Okay.
I mean, this is it's crazy. It's
Okay.
against everything that we thought.
We're not done with the coincidences, okay? Because theoretically, if he's trying to get rid of this wife or girlfriend or this illicit affair that he had, and we assume maybe she was going to tell the other wife or something about that, then he would have obviously also gotten rid of the child as well, right? Logic would dictate.
Yes, and that is pure evil as far as I'm concerned. I mean, your own daughter, doing this to your own kid is just off the charts.
So we have the statistically rare case of a husband dismembering his wife. Now, listen, I'm not saying obviously intimate partner relationships, it's always, it's very much always the husband. When I'm talking about specifically a dismemberment, But add on top of that, then killing his own child. Okay, statistically, again, doesn't happen a lot. So in addition to the first coincidence, we have a second coincidence, which is he then drives a couple miles further out. He's in Nassau County. He then decides to drop the baby somewhere else in Suffolk County, a couple miles further out, and he drops all the way at the other end. He drops the baby, and it just so happens, coincidentally, that 3 years later, Rex Heuermann, or a different serial killer, drops the dismembered remains of Valerie Mack only 211 feet away. A different serial killer, mind you, who dismembered a different victim. And by the way, we know that it's not the same victim because his DNA is actually on Valerie Mack, Rex Heuermann.
Yeah.
So this guy's great. Why? Because he managed to drop one victim 2 miles from where a different serial killer had put the remains of a different victim a year before. Wow, great coincidence. Then he takes the baby and puts the baby in a spot where a different serial killer, or the same serial killer, doesn't matter, but it wasn't him, happens to then 3 years later drop the body of Valerie Mack just 211 feet away. So not just one coincidence, but he manages to nail two very unbelievable coincidences.
Yeah. There's no arguing it. I mean, that's what we're dealing with as of right now. Like I said, I'm hoping
virtually impossible when you put in when you look at the numbers of what we're talking about. It is virtually impossible when you start to look at statistical probability of that happening.
It's tough to even wrap your head around this. I mean, that's why this story is so huge in so many aspects. I mean, you just kind of, well, listen, as soon as this kind of hit, I kind of sit back and said, like, wow, how is the dynamics of this thing going to work out in regards to this? As just saying, now we're just going to say, well, just this will happen by coincidence that this guy did all this stuff.
Okay,
boy,
so
it's tough to answer.
For everybody else who's like, well, you know, Tanya didn't fit the MO. I disagree. Sandra Castilla was from Trinidad. She was brown skin. His planning document under targets says T-Unc, right? Target unknown, black. On his Google searches, it shows him looking for porn subjects that include black individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't buy the fact that she was black doesn't make her a probable MO.
No, I don't think the race had anything to do with it in that respect. Like I said, we're still learning everything we can about what the guy that they have now already in custody for 7 cases. And, you know, the fact that he hasn't spoken, we don't really know much about his childhood. We don't know much about his family other than who they are, his history, his ex-wife. We don't know any of this stuff. The backstories here is pretty wild when you're dealing with Rex in certain aspects.
And on top of it, people are saying, well, you know, the tattoo, why didn't he do anything to this tattoo when he did something to the other tattoos? But if you look at the planning document, he says to do something to the tattoo, i.e. he put the reminder for himself to do something. So not buying that part of it either. And if it was the husband, don't you think the husband would have known about her tattoo and the fact that there's initials in that tattoo? Wouldn't he have removed the tattoo?
You would think if you took the effort to remove her, hands and head, you would might as well at this point.
He takes all these forensic countermeasures, right? Not just removing the head and hands, not just dismembering her, but then discarding her remains all over the place. But he doesn't remove the tattoo. We still don't know what those initials mean, but there are 3 initials, which could lead him to it, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is.
Can I ask another question? Can I ask another question?
Sure.
I was reading the boards before, and it says that, you know, there's a chance that the wife, his current wife, knew about Tatiana. Did you read anything about Tanya? Did you read anything about that?
Yeah, I saw some of that stuff. Like I said, at this point, I'm kind of in the camp of I want to hear something coming out officially because normally we don't run to these forums to try to
Listen,
get all your
I
information from. Yeah,
completely agree, but I'm only trying to go off what we know at the moment, right? And trying to make the best assessment that we can. Because if the wife knew about Tanya, killing her would be a real mistake. you know, so just throwing that out there. The only thing that I think people are glomming onto, and I understand, is the fact that we have no proof that Tanya was a sex worker, right?
correct.
But you and I spoke at that presser and mentioned how they soft sold her working for a doctor's office.
Yeah, there was a couple of things out of that presser that now doesn't make any sense. That and also the big issue with the geostorm. I mean, was it a black geostorm? Or was it a red herring? I mean, at
Well,
this point,
can we go back to that geostorm? Could you go back, because weren't you saying that there was a chance that the geostorm was seen in Hempstead Park?
right, it could have been, or they could have recovered the vehicle. Maybe somebody else was driving it. Uh, the police keep records of abandoned vehicles. Specifically, it's state that park is state property. If we were trying to discuss, if you remember, how did she meet somebody at the park, or did this event happen somewhere else and she was driven in her car? Was her
Well,
car then abandoned? So all those things that we were trying to parse out in since April.
but do you remember if the car was at the park at any time?
We don't know. I mean,
Okay.
they didn't say that. They just said that she has a black geostorm, and they made sure they showed us the picture, and they mentioned the black geostorm at least 6 or 7 times. And then we were talking about, like, why do they keep on flagging us with this geostorm? What significance does it have about the case? And
Well,
now I'm questioning it again.
right. Well, and I also heard, and just kind of reaching out to people and speaking to people, that is it that the husband may have sold the car or something like that?
Well,
Anecdotally.
yeah, DMV would have the records of all that stuff, but more than likely, the car was found somewhere else, and because Tanya wasn't using it anymore, started probably getting summonses because, especially if it was back in New York City with alternate side parking, and eventually that car might have been towed away.
Right. I'd like to bring up something else. This is not the first time we've dealt with Nassau County playing games with peaches. Remember, back when we did the killing season, we had to call. Todd Matthews from NamUs was the one who called the medical examiner's office and got them to admit that the same woman, Peaches, who was found in Hempstead Park in 1997, was connected to Jane Doe number 3, the remains that were found less than 2 miles from Karen Brigada. That information hadn't been made public, and we didn't know why that information hadn't been made public. You would think that they would want that information to be public, or would have thought that that would have been important for that information to be public.
Yeah, no, I remember that well. And I remember, remember Todd Matthews well as also in regards to not only this case, but other cases too. But yeah, I mean, the question comes down to why. I mean, what's been the secret? Why did they wait 2 years or so, or a year and a half to even identify them in the first place? These are all questions that we may never know the answer to, but I think we'll get some of those answers soon.
I agree, but I'm just saying, like, they're Nassau County. I thought the reason they didn't say it was because of Suffolk County, because like they didn't want, they were having problems with Suffolk County.
Well, and we've also touched upon this at length too, right? I mean, not having a representative there, uh, not dropping another arrest warrant out of Suffolk for the Tatiana. There's something afoot here for sure. Is it about timing? Is this something where we don't want to be talking about this now and giving fodder, so to speak, to the defense of Rex Sherman?
Well,
Michael Brown, what is he going to be latching on to in regards to this? I mean, these are the things that run through my head as this was going on.
well, that's my problem. I understand them wanting and having the DNA and therefore the evidence to do so, but don't they understand that this undermines the case against Rex Heuermann?
Well, I don't know if it undermines it per se. I think it gives, like I said, fodder to it. I mean, listen, the forensic evidence that they have against Rex Heuermann is pretty damning. I mean, Michael Brown has lost a couple of big suppression hearings.
Yeah.
He's lost a couple of big suppression hearings, including the last one that allowed the DNA to be in to begin with. The cell phone records, the 500 digital things. We only know like this much of really what they have. We are only told. I mean, this planning document. I'm not. I don't think that the case is in jeopardy. But I do think, I kind of feel bad for the district attorney in the respect that he's going to have another headache to deal with because Michael Brown has brought up certain people in the past, including the infamous James Burke, and
Sure.
Thomas Boda will be rearing his ugly head again, and now this will be rearing its ugly head.
Yeah, but there's people on all the threads now who are like, well, what if Rex didn't do it? What if Rex didn't do it? Like it these little things are eat away at the defense, and all it takes is a jury of 12. Everybody's like, well, what, like
It only
I
takes
always
one
thought,
out of a jury of 12.
I'm
When you think
sorry.
about it, it only takes one person out
That's
of a jury of 12 to throw a fly in the ointment
that's what I'm
or
saying.
hair in the ointment. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like we just went through how crazy, almost again, nearly statistically impossible that he would have gone out there and dumped the body where he did, considering the victims that it's next to, and considering not just victims previously placed before, but after 211 feet. I mean, in 30, 40 miles of area, it really, I don't know, it just upsets me, and I guess the fact is I know the games that Nassau County was playing previously with that when they didn't connect Peaches to Jane Doe number 3.
Right. And you'd have to ask the question why all of the cloak and dagger stuff that's going on, and in regards to this case specifically. But like I said, I don't think the case against Rex is in any jeopardy whatsoever. But I just think that this is just another thing that add to the plate of Ray Tierney.
By the other way, the other thing that would then say is, oh, the only way would then for this gentleman to be in cahoots with Rex Heuermann.
Yeah. Well, well, this was the conversations that we were having before an arrest was even made, if you remember, right? The conversations were big about more than one serial killer operating, and Tom Spoder himself said 3 or 4 people. Richard Dormer saying 1. I mean, once again, we're bringing all that stuff back out. It's like every now and then we're just going around in this full circle. It's like
Bit
this
rough,
merry-go-round.
bit rough,
Bit
so
off. Yeah, it's like the merry-go-round. You just want to get off.
For folks that said Tatiana was not Tatiana was complete. Yes, Tatiana was complete. Did we get an answer about the head? Because I always thought that they had never found her head.
Yeah, I've actually, as we're doing this, I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. I found one website that said yes, that her head was found, and I found another website that her head wasn't found. So,
I don't think her head was found. I believe her head was not found, and that's one of the issues that we're still trying to contend with. Now, if you go and you look at, if we do assume that Peaches was in fact killed by Rex, allegedly, a lot of the identifying extremities were the ones found on Ocean Parkway, while the torsos, if you look at Valerie Mack, if you look at Jessica Taylor, those were found kind of theoretically out in the open or what have you. So the fact that Peach's head was not found is a little bit disturbing, although then we get into this idea of the hurricanes, and maybe that washed something away. So
it could be, or it was deposited somewhere else along the path between Brooklyn and Long Island.
But obviously the point is you unless he's a crazy, again, even an expert like Mark Safrick, which you've interviewed as well, says beyond utilitarian things. It's there to prevent identification, right? So this would be, in this case, the husband dismembering to prevent this woman's identification that he has a relationship with. Maybe she's going to ruin his marriage or something. So that's why she's dismembered. But again, I still don't understand why he would put her remains in Hempstead and then put her other remains in Jones Beach, and then put the baby's remains in Suffolk County.
Gilgo.
Yes, Gilgo, which we also know is behavior that is very indicative to Rex, which we will get into when we go and look at Mindhunter, because he was looking at Mindhunter and knew that that was something else to do.
Right. And, in a way, I'm glad we're doing this today and not doing it on Sunday, because this has so many tentacles now in it that it's kind of, like I said, the waters have been muddied in this. And I can only imagine the conversations that are happening right now in Suffolk County in regarding, the case against Rex Heuermann for sure. And, of course, I don't know for sure. I'm just speculating. And, whatever Josh and I come up with to say, this is what our opinion in regards to what's going on based on what we know. But, or think in a lot of cases. I'm really perplexed around this one here, and I'm perplexed about the secrecy at this point. Like, what's the big secret? It would Nassau just drop the probable cause affidavit and let's show us everybody your probable cause.
Why
How
no
this happened?
presser? Why no presser?
I don't know. I mean, it's just like I said. There's lots of different scenarios about what we're dealing with here. They held a presser to identify her. You figured if you're going to make the arrest, that this would be another opportunity to get in front of the camera and say, hey, everybody, look, we just pulled a rabbit out of the hat on a almost 30-year-old case.
By the way, I just want to apologize. Everybody's like, why you keep calling her Peaches? It's because I've known her for 10, 12 years as Peaches. It's almost like, yes, Tanya, but it's more habit of knowing somebody for so long is one way. So I apologize. But I it's just really upsetting. It's just another example. We kind of joke that this is the case that keeps on giving, but it's a sad joke because this is the case that keeps on getting screwed up over and over again.
It's getting odder and odder too. I mean, it's just this is a different dynamic and a different aspect of, like, yes, most people are victimized by someone we know. Yes, that she looked different than some of the other victims, but the fact that parts of her remains were found in Jones Beach and her daughter was found in Gilgo. I mean, wow. Talk about not seeing that one coming.
Yeah, well. Anyway, anything else we didn't? Well, by the way, he fled.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the other thing. Yeah, in the affidavit there, not the affidavit, in the arrest warrant, they said that he fled the state, basically, or fled prosecution, which is unusual because this is 1997 we're talking about. Did they just say, well, after she disappeared, he left New York State? I mean, when time frame was that? How long after she disappeared? Was he ever talked to? I mean, most of the time you also find throughout your cold case stuff that your suspect is somewhere in the case file. And you would figure that the child's father would be interviewed somewhere along the line in regards to this case. Now, was she a total secret from everybody? Like, they didn't know who the father was back then? That's a possibility, right? She had a child, and we don't know if they knew about that, meaning the police knew about her.
Yeah. By the way, some people are saying, like, could he have placed the bodies in along Ocean Parkway because there was rumors of a serial killer? There wasn't at this time. You're talking about literally the third murder. You're talking Rex. Nobody even knew about Sandra Castilla. You're talking about the first murder theoretically in '97, and 90. This being 96. Karen Vergata, and this being 97. This was before anybody knew anything. So it's not like that area was a known serial killer spot or even a mob dump site or even any type of dump site. Right?
Right.
Karen
Yeah.
Vergata,
I mean,
none.
right. I mean, it's not like it was off the Bell Parkway where that was a mob site.
Sure.
Right,
Staten Island,
right
New York,
where,
where I'm from,
yeah,
big mob site,
Starrett City before they built the city on garbage. That was a big mob dump site back in the day.
But the point being is there's no reason for him to have picked this area based upon some trying to get somebody else to blame somebody else for something, trying to hide
Exactly.
something under somebody else's crimes.
And then the questions comes down to is how does he know about Gilgo if he's living in Brooklyn at the time, and where is he from, and this is way out there. I mean, there are people that live on Long Island that didn't know where Gilgo was. I mean, it's simple as that. There are people that lived on Long Island who didn't, when this case first broke, they had no idea where Gilgo was. So
He meets her in Texas.
yeah,
They're in Texas. He's in the army. He's around. But I think the one thing I would, and not to disparage Tanya in any way, stretch, or form, but I would like to really know more, because everybody says that she wasn't involved because she wasn't a sex worker. But now I want to go back and listen to that presser, listen to the exact wordage, because,
well, maybe there's some clues there. Right now that we have some more information, did they drop any hints or clues? Like I said, right now the black geostorm looks like a red herring. If they knew it was him all along and they've been following around trying to get a DNA sample, who cares where the black geostorm was and what was
well,
going on with it?
well, some people said, and I kind of get it, like maybe, maybe. Oh, by the way, does give us a very good indication of why a mother and a child would not be reported missing, because the father didn't want this family. Tragically, this was, the other thing that you said, and maybe I think it's worth mentioning, is like how if her DNA is found, if his DNA is found on her, then how? I mean, you gave a good thing. You said, do you want to go into that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not out of the stretch of a realm of a possibility, and I think we'll hear this as his defense. I mean, people break up; they're together a long time. He has a child in common, and maybe they hook up again down the road. Maybe they're trying to repair that relationship or what have you. His relationship is complicated. Let's just put it that way, right? If he's got a wife and he has a girl on the side who got pregnant. I mean, talk about complicated. I mean, we have motive for this kind of thing too. There's lots of different
Right.
finger pointing over here in regards to this. But yeah, I don't. I think they broke up. Yes, I did say I hadn't seen her in a while, but you know what? I did see her, and we got together, and this happened, and that's the reason why they found my DNA. I think that's going to be the defense.
Yeah. Look, I don't put it out of the question of why there would be motive. Just when you look at where the remains were discarded next to victims that predate other Long Island serial killer victims, somehow Rex is magically putting Valerie Mack's remains 250 feet from where the baby is 3 years before. I mean, just looking at it from that perspective, it becomes statistically very unlikely, rare, close to impossible.
Well, sure. And then if you think about it, the Gilgo 4 labeled because they were found close proximity, wrapped up together in the same kind of thing. Everyone pointed to that person as the same killer. We have the Dave Schaller ID. We have the other ID from up in Manorville that saw a green pickup truck or whatever, or the green truck that kind of matches that description. And I believe this is what Michael Brown is going to say, right? Maybe he's responsible for these 4, but he's not responsible for all these other people. I don't know what exactly is going to
Yeah, but
transpire out of all this.
DNA's on Valerie Mack.
I know,
Anyway.
but you're also dealing with people who meet a number of people maybe during a day.
Sure.
You kind of got cut off there in the Mike stuff.
No. I was actually just thinking. I was trying to think of what what the thing was. I just don't get it. And where's her skull?
Yeah. So is it the skull officially missing? So what
Yes,
did they
yeah.
actually find? I mean, yeah. So I got my facts confused on this one. Not
Yes,
not
yeah. Her
I'm like
skull
I'm getting
is
old.
her skull was never found. That was like one of the things. It kind of doesn't make sense that her skull was never found because there's never been like another burial ground. So I actually think that it has to do with the hurricanes that did happen. I did some real deep dives on the hurricanes from people who live in that area, and they said actually the place at least where a number of those bodies were found was actually higher above. Those places were not covered by water, but definitely a place down where, because we know in Jones Beach it was. So yeah, her head tragically could have been kind of
Yeah,
washed
well,
out.
you had, I remember very clearly, you had Hurricane Irene the year before, and then you had Hurricane Sandy. So in between all these bodies being discovered, you had two major hurricanes that hit Long Island.
Yeah. The craziest thing,
Major hurricanes.
the craziest thing, Joe, is I think, and I'm not trying, trust me, I'm not trying to like uh push the podcast, but I think the episode that drops on Monday has our conversations with Todd Matthews about Peaches and about why Nassau County wasn't saying that Peaches was related to Jane Doe number 3. It's just, it blows my mind. I don't even want new stories. I just want the regular the main story to kind of.
Well, you want the answers. I mean, listen, this is what you do for a living, right? You create documentaries and try
Sure.
to get to the answers, and you spent a lot of time on this case, and you're intrigued as well as I am, and many others. So
Sure.
I don't find that a stretch, or the thought process about why you feel that way. And I think a lot of people share your sentiment in regards to that. I think it's more frustration
Yeah,
than
that's what
anything
I'm
else.
saying.
Yeah, it's more frustration than anything else.
I
And keeping all these cases in your head and try to do all these things, and which case is this, which one had that, and how many of this, you kind of lose track, which I just proved a little while ago. So
Mhm.
it's a lot to take in.
All right. Um, are we done here? Do we want to discuss anything else? Are we good?
Well, I don't know. I guess the focus will be, if you remember, just we both, Mary Murphy and Laura Ingle, had kind of cornered District Attorney Ray Tierney about Peaches, right? They had asked about certain things, and he was, of course, very evasive because that's what he has to. But I'm going to go back and start looking at some of these things and going back to that presser if I can find it, and see if there were any clues that were dropped that we have an answer to now that we didn't know before.
Police politics. Why these guys? They're not mortal enemies, right? This being like this being the folks from Suffolk County and Nassau County. You said that there wasn't a Suffolk County representative at the Peaches presser,
Presser.
which definitely indicates to you something important, right?
Yeah, that they stayed away from it. That was my original thing. Like, they just steered clear of it, and you kind of ask why, because they have a victim that belongs to the woman found in at the time, which we know as Peaches, but Tanya, found in Hempstead Lake State Park, and her daughter found in Gilgo. So you have an interjurisdictional issue here. But like I said, an 18-month-old didn't walk out there to Gilgo and leave herself there.
But my point is, why would Nassau do anything to undermine Suffolk County's case?
I
They
don't know
didn't
if they're
have
doing anything
what?
intentional. I don't think it's anything intentional. I just think that right now Suffolk's plate's full. Right now
Yeah,
it's full.
yeah, but they know but they know that this would throw doubt into whether Rex is responsible for all of the victims. They know this would help put a chink in the armor of the Suffolk's case. Why would they
Well,
do that?
listen, I have yet to even come across a situation where they would say, "Oh, we have an ID and a positive ID and a DNA hit on a murder suspect, but we're going to hold off until after this case, and then we'll make the arrest." That would be really bad
Okay,
policy.
that's okay. I buy
That would
that.
be a
That's
really bad
legit.
policy.
That's
Because
legit.
God forbid this guy ends up killing somebody else or doing something, they're gonna be like, "You sat on this for politics reasons, political reasons, basically, not to muddy the waters." I don't think that's gonna happen, and that would be like a real conversation that you would kind of like. Even people talking about it would be like, "What are we, crazy?"
Yeah, yeah.
So
I agree with you there. I agree with you there. And then what happens? What happens about the baby then? Like, what happens?
Well,
'Cause
this becomes an issue, right? I mean, you had the opportunity to we call it drop the paperwork, right? I mean, you're basically dropping the paperwork because Nassau's got the lead on the mother. They're making an arrest, so they're running with this. They have the biggest piece of the puzzle, and that's of Tanya. And Suffolk would just drop the paper on afterwards and say, okay, when you're done, we'll just drop another arrest on him for murder. And if he gets out of your case or something happens, we'll try him on this. But I don't know. I don't know. It's a real big question. Like I said, when he shows up in court, I think we're going to have the answers to some of these things because it's got to lay out the probable cause. It's got to lay out how they found out it was him and what have you. And maybe they have some of these answers to some of these questions. That's the only thing I'm hoping for. I mean, Ann Donnelly's done a great job in Nassau County too. She's done she's the district attorney in Nassau County. So, I believe they have this case buttoned up, so to speak. But if it goes by just the DNA alone, I'm a little worried, like I said before, because they have a child in common already. So,
what do you mean?
well, he has a child with her. Like I said, they asked him back then, why didn't you say something that you saw her then and you had a relationship with her then? Well, I was afraid they were gonna, they're gonna think I killed her. I didn't kill her. I didn't want to just, stay away from it.
Right. Or I was seeing her on the side.
And I don't want my
Right.
wife to know, right? Yeah. So
That's what you had told me before. Like, what is your DNA here? And he's like, look, I didn't want it to tell you that,
it's a plausible defense. Let's put it that. That's what we were discussing. It's a plausible defense.
Right. It never stops. Everybody, we have an interview tonight, Joe. Our interview with Joseph Scott Morgan. What a great guy.
Yeah, Joe's a great guy.
Unbelievable. Looking at Othram and very emotional. I was surprised at how emotional it could get.
And we have our show on Sunday, part 1. We're gonna get into Mindhunter. All right, so we got this out of the way. We've got the breaking news out of the way.
That's exactly what I was going to. Thank you for reminding me. The irony here is that Rex Heuermann reading Mindhunter, and yes, we'll save it, but let's just real quick, right? Just a taste. Reading Mindhunter says that it gives him the idea, or he also picked it up from people who are being interviewed in Mindhunter, that he's going to drop different body parts in different places to create interjurisdictional issues with which to undermine, right, the investigation, correct?
Yeah.
Here you have the same. It's actually happening in real time. Years later, it's undermining the case. It could be undermining the court case right this second.
Yeah, that's, and like I said, we're gonna get into all this stuff, and we're gonna do part 1 on my channel, and then for the second part is gonna be right here on Sinister. So you're gonna have to watch part 1 on True Crime with the Sergeant. Part 2 is going to be with Sinister.
All right, Joe. Thank you very much. Crazy stuff. Hopefully
we will Yeah. Well, like I said, hopefully we have some answers on Monday or Tuesday. We're not going to get any answers until then. The extradition hearing is going to happen. I hope it happens today, and he doesn't fight it. He can be back in New York as early as tomorrow, and then Monday he'd have to be arraigned. We'll bring him into court and then find out exactly what happened then.
And then are they gonna do a presser at some point?
You would think. Maybe they're waiting until he shows up in Nassau.
Okay. Joe, thank you very much. Appreciate your help as always. It's great to talk to you.
You got it.